Excellennial here with another story-based Excel tutorial, and today I'm going to be talking about Rachel, the jewelry maker. Now, Rachel is trying to understand her sales more. To do this, she wants to look for specific information on a table of recent sales. She's looking for how many rings were recently sold for over $30 as the price, and the total sales for that time frame coming out to over $60. Let's use the DCOUNT function to figure this out. Alright, so here is a table of some recent sales that Rachel has made, and then the parameters that I just laid out. The jewelry type that she's looking for is a ring with an individual price of over $30 and a total price in this time frame to be over $60 worth of items sold. So what we did here is we left this table here, the simple breakdown, and we just typed out this little table to set the parameters of what Rachel's looking for. And now what we're doing with these two tables is this DCOUNT formula using the DCOUNT function. Now what this says, this is just a breakdown of what we're looking for, and this is programmed into cell E4. And what we're doing here is telling Excel to look at these two tables, A7 through D16. And that's right here highlighted. That is A7 through D16, looking at that table and then counting the total column, so counting the cells from the total column, and then comparing that information to A3 through D4. So the DCOUNT function is comparing these two tables and then finding the data based on that second table. So let me break that down a little bit more. So you start with the equal symbol because it is a function that we're using. Type in DCOUNT, and then it needs three things: the database, the field, and the criteria. So the database is the A7 through D16. That is the database that we are looking for the information in. So I'll select that. We have to be sure as well that we select the header. If we don't select the header, then the field and criteria are going to get a little confused about where it's looking for, and you won't get a proper result. That is our database. Now I'm going to select comma. We're done selecting the database. Now the field is, like I said, where they're going to be counting. Up here we selected total, and because this is text format, we would do the quotations and then type it out. And what that's doing is telling the formula how it's going to count rows. So the end result, we need to know how many rows there are of rings that were sold for over $30 individually and had a total price sold for the end of the month as a higher price. What that does for us is it just shows how many rows there are. It needs something to count off of. So we'll type total there, and then that is our field. Now the criteria is what are we trying to match? And now this is the A3 through D4, and this is a part of why it's so important to have that header. So the headers here match and tell the first, the database, the A7 through E16, tells that portion what it's looking for. So the headers all match, and then that's the data that we're looking for. I'm going to press enter. Now what you can see here is that we selected ring. We're looking for the rings. So it found any of these that say ring, which is 5, but it's also, because this whole database section here, this whole thing here was selected as the criteria, it is also looking for a price that is over $30. So this one was eliminated because it is only 22. So yeah, so you can see that this one was eliminated. We'll move that one to the bottom because it didn't count in the final number here because the pricing was under 30. Now all of these are over 30, but you can see that some of them were not over $60. These three were, but this one only sold one of this type of ring. So it did have an individual price of over 30, but it did not have total sales in this range of time of more than the $34.67. So it's under the $60 total that we were looking for, which means that these three are the only ones that match all of their criteria that was set according to this criteria database. So the end result here is 3. Now this is a cool thing to kind of toy around with because you can search for more specifics. Like let's say we have 3 here, but we only wanted to look at ones that had a quantity sold of 3 or more. So we're going to go ahead and type in here, since this is still our criteria base, we're going to type greater than or equal to 3. Now our total count goes down to 2 because we actually only had this top one here and then this ring multicolor heart. Those were the only ones that meet all the other parameters and also sold more than or equal to 3 in the quantity sold section. Like I said, it's a big deal to have the headers match. So let's say this only said sold. This is going to completely change because the database doesn't match. The headers aren't the same. So that creates a big issue here because it doesn't know what it's looking for. But since I deleted the sold option, it does go away and then it does match these other two pieces, so that's fine. But anytime I set a parameter in here, it's confused with what was being added. So since I've added information back in here, you can see that this piece again, DCOUNT function, is not understanding because it doesn't say quantity sold. Again, if we change this back to quantity sold, the database is going to update just fine because it's reading all of the headers and they match. Although this was definitely a little bit more complex of a function than Rachel is used to, this was definitely really interesting for her to learn and going to be a very useful tool going forward if she needs to find very specific parameters for certain ranges of purchases that were made in her Etsy shop. If you have any questions about this process, please leave a comment in the section below, and until next time, have fun excelling!